Bitcoin's meteoric surge has steadied just shy of $100,000 per coin, but the markets remain on tenterhooks. The world's largest cryptocurrency is up 130% in the year to date. Now, this chart, we're going to show you a chart now, that shows you the last 6 months. You know what, it's a combination of unprecedented institutional support following the emergence of spot Bitcoin exchange-traded funds earlier this year, and Donald Trump's election victory, because he promised a raft of pro-crypto policies in his campaign, which is why much of the increase, as you can see, has taken place in November. Okay, well, Jason Deane is a Bitcoin consultant based in the UK. Great to see you as always, Jason. So interesting to see what's happened in November. Is this the Trump effect?
Yes, good afternoon, Juliet. Nice to see you again. Yeah, I mean, part of this is the Trump effects, but let's not forget the US is just one market and what is a global market for Bitcoin. So there are other factors at play here. But yeah, there's no question that we've seen a change in a narrative, a change in proposed legislation, and a change in the idea of having a strategic Bitcoin reserve for the US. So all of these things have really, excited the market and moved Bitcoin forward really quite rapidly.
But why then? Because you mentioned there are other factors too, other catalysts. Why is Bitcoin becoming more valuable?
So what a question of supply and demand, Julia. I mean, that's the answer. Bitcoin is an extremely limited asset. There's only 21 million Bitcoin ever going to exist in the world, and a lot of those are already accounted for. There are only about 2.5 million, in fact, left on exchanges at the moment. We've seen that decline through the whole year. And at the same time, we've seen this massive increase in demand through the products that you mentioned, ETFs, not just in the US. Obviously, we've got monochrome in Australia. We've got ETFs in Hong Kong, in Canada, but also a large number of companies adopting Bitcoin as their treasury. MicroStrategy, of course, the most famous example, but we're getting daily announcements almost now of companies announcing they're moving to Bitcoin strategic reserves. And of course, the nation state reserve, a million Bitcoin in the US over 5 years, and other countries as well. El Salvador, Kingdom of Bhutan, plenty of countries looking at this as a real option going ahead.
Do you think Bitcoin is then making the markets nervous about stocks, about currencies?
That's a very good question. I don't think anyone's asked me that before. I don't think so. I mean, look, there's a very broad aspect to this, which is that Bitcoin is a store of wealth. So when measured against something like fiat currencies, generally, which are over time always lose value, then clearly there's an argument to say that money will move into Bitcoin over time, which is another, demand drive. Whether it's making them nervous, well, I think we'll see in time. I can't comment on that.
So will there be a Bitcoin correction? And if so, when and why?
Yeah, another great question, because there's a lot going on in the markets out right now. We've moved very quickly to 100,000. You'll notice we haven't broken through that level yet. It's a very strong psychological level. You need a lot of momentum to get through these enormous sell walls that exist. That's the order book that's set at 100,000. Now, this is a question of when, not if. We will break through that, and beyond there, there's really not very much resistance, so we are expecting to see quite rapid price discovery. Now, in terms of corrections, obviously Bitcoin's famous for this, having quite a lot of volatility over the years, and it's kind of linked to the 4-year cycle that we have with Bitcoin, which exists for technical reasons I won't really go into now, but it's followed that very closely for the last 16 years. Now, that could be about to change. We might be seeing a new narrative here. We may not see the big drops that we've seen in the past. I'm personally subscribing to that argument now, and I think we're in a whole new era for Bitcoin. So exciting times ahead.
So you talk about this 4-year cycle. What about the longer-term outlook then?
Longer term, I think it's quite simple. Bitcoin is going higher, and that is simply a question of supply and demand. Okay, we've only got this 21 million, this increasing global demand, it's simple economics. That's what we're going to see over time.